This morning, a new era in Texas politics.
Every member will have a voice.
Dustin Burrows elected Speaker of the Texas House. What now changes at the legislature? Will Republicans who supported him face political punishment? The new Republican Speaker has Democrats to thank. They gave Burrows enough votes to get the gavel.
Do you expect Democrats are going to chair any committees this legislature?
I think Democrats will.
You think so?
Yes.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick on what he expects from the new Speaker.
Is he going to be Dade 2.0 and let the Democrats run him? Or is he actually going to be a strong conservative speaker?
Patrick also revealing new information about abortion, school choice, and listen to what he told us about banning THC. And just before tomorrow's inauguration, Congressman Roger Williams from D.C. on what to expect in the first 60 days from the new president.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. A lot to cover here in the next half hour, so let's start with what is happening right now. The presidential inauguration is tomorrow, and hundreds of Texans will be there in D.C. for the ceremony. President-elect Trump takes the oath of office about noon our time. Former President George W. Bush, who lives in Dallas, will attend, along with former President Clinton. It's a day-long event with the presidential parade and inaugural balls also into the night. A unique moment on the House floor in the Texas House of Representatives has gone viral over the last few days. After getting sworn into his second term, State Rep. Vinton Jones from Dallas proposed to his longtime partner there on the floor, Gregory Scott Jr. The video posted to X already viewed more than 3 million times. The Dallas Democrat said a wedding date would be sometime next year. And Dallas City Council will vote this week on who to hire as its next city manager. Kim Tolbert, Mario Lara, and William Johnson are all finalists for the position. Insiders tell me that Tolbert is the favorite. She's already doing the job right now on an interim basis. The city manager is responsible for running Dallas day to day and the city's 13,000 employees. Let's start this morning, though, with the Texas legislature and the brand new Speaker of the House, Dustin Burrows from Lubbock. The question now, what to expect from him? Will the relationship between the House and Senate improve at all? One of our questions for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and he also reveals a new property tax cut he wants this session. And listen to what the Lieutenant Governor tells us about THC and about abortion. Governor, thank you for the time. We're often going here. What do you expect the first bill to be to pass the Texas Senate?
School choice.
How soon?
As soon as the governor puts it on the emergency list, because the Constitution says we cannot pass bills until the 60th day, which would be mid-March. But emergency items we can pass immediately. So he'll have a number of emergency items, and I believe school choice will be one of those. We've passed it, Jason, 5 times or more out of the Senate since 2015. It's time that parents have a right for school choice. And for anyone watching that says, yeah, but it's going to undermine public education, just keep these numbers in mind. The budget for public education is about $40 billion. The budget for school choice is about $700 million.
You guys have a $24 billion surplus,
Yes.
The comptroller said. The rainy day fund is
Yes.
full. You said you want to put some money, a lot of that money, to property tax relief again this session.
Yeah.
What do you think, and how much could Texans potentially see in relief?
Well, what's really important, Jason, is that whatever we do where we're spending money that has to be spent every year moving out, you have to be careful with that, because you don't want to get so far out that 4 years from now you have to come back and say, oh, we went too far. So we have to do it gradually. So I came in 2015, the homestead exemption was $15,000. Now it's $100,000, $110,000. I'd like to take that to $140,000 this session, so another $40,000, we can afford that. And that will be our direction of where we'll go in the Senate, with a little bit of compression.
Let's talk about what happened with the Speaker of the House. Dustin Burrows elected over there as the next Speaker of the House. A lot of people see him as a continuation of Dade Phelan. Do you expect Burrows to have an impact on any of your priorities?
He has told me, and I've worked with him in the past, he has told me that he's going to be the most conservative speaker ever. He's going to be put to the test, because we have passed bill after bill after bill. For example, we passed bail reform to keep murderers and rapists and child sex offenders off the street from getting bail. And the House has killed it every time. Is he going to pass it? Or is he going to let the Democrats kill it again? Because that's what Dade Phelan did. We passed to put the 10 Commandments back in our schools. We didn't even get a hearing on it. We passed a bill that said China can't buy all our Texas land. They killed that bill. We tried to stop CRT in our higher education. They killed that bill. I could give you a long list of bills, not just passed by Republicans, mind you, in the Senate, but bills that passed, we have 31 senators, bills that passed 26-5, bills that passed 31-0, died over there. So look, my main goal this past 2 years since the last session was that Dade Phelan wasn't back. He's not back. So that's a victory. Now, Dustin Burrows, who was his right-hand man, is he going to be Dade 2.0 and let the Democrats run him? Or is he actually going to be a strong conservative speaker and pass these bills that the people of Texas, the majority, want to pass?
Attorney General Ken Paxton said he would primary any Republican that voted against David Cook, who the caucus wanted there. Do you think anything should happen to those Republicans who voted for Burrows?
Right now, Jason, I'm going to focus on session. Campaigning is later, okay? Let's see what happens this session. Okay, let's see what happens this session. If these bills die again, a lot of those people that voted for Burrows will probably be challenged. They may be challenged anyway, but my focus is on the next 139 days. We have a lot to do. I don't know if parents are focused on this or grandparents watching, but in the last 2 years, Jason, 8,000 locations have opened up that are selling above the marijuana limit, sometimes 3 or 4 times of the marijuana you would buy on the street from a drug dealer. And they're selling them as candy, they're selling them in all types of products that you walk into these smoke shops, CBD and that. We have a regulation, it's supposed to be 0.03, but they're putting, you can go into some of these stop and go type places and you can buy a candy bar with 100 milligrams of THC. There'll be a big fight out there because it's $1 billion industry that has sprung up in 24 months.
But why not regulate it then? If it's that much money, why not regulate it and require?
Well, we regulate liquor, for example.
Right.
We regulate pretty strict on that. That's a possibility, but I think the consensus of members and people I've talked to, it's get it out. Because basically, through the back door, they've legalized marijuana in the state of Texas.
Last question.
Pretty potent.
Indeed so. Last question,
Yeah.
Governor. Do you expect any significant abortion legislation either to clarify current statute or to strengthen it?
I do think that we need to clarify any language so that doctors are not in fear of being penalized if they think the life of the mother is at risk.
How about punishing women if they
We
get
should
an
never
abortion?
punish women, of course not. Those were a few people somewheres, that said that, and they don't speak for Republicans, they don't speak for Americans. You're not going to punish women. That's ridiculous for that. Ridiculous.
Governor, thank you for the time.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Ian Mitra with us from Austin at the Texas Tribune. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, brand new speaker, what are you expecting?
Well, I think out of Dan Patrick, his number one priority really is vengeance. It's vengeance against the House for not choosing the speaker he wanted, vengeance for sending him the Ken Paxton trial. So he's not going to pass any Democrats' bills. He's not going to pass Republicans' bills if they were part of defeating Cook. So that's really his number one priority. I do think Dan's a great communicator. He's got a great way of explaining what he wants. He's got a fine line to walk. He can pass vouchers, but he needs to pass school finance, put more money in the schools. He can improve medical marijuana, but still put down THC, stop THC. And he could even loosen the law and allow online gambling, but he stopped casinos.
And Ian, how do you think the calculus changes now?
Well, I mean, we've seen how Lieutenant Governor Patrick has run the Senate before, and we can anticipate some things, right? He's already got committee assignments out, so he knows who his committee chairs are. He's going to be very aggressive in passing through legislation, and when bills pass through his Senate, he's going to be very vocal about now it's on to the House. So we can see this playing out in that way too, where there's a process in place, and so you can already see him kind of talking about the House has to hold up its chair here, so you can see that kind of taking shape.
Bernadine?
Jason, none of those things that have been talked about, there is no difference than how he has run the Senate in the past. I think that what he has seen is that some of those Republicans in the House are not going to accept bullying from him, because I think that's what we saw in the speaker's race. And I think that he's going to definitely actively pursue his agenda, but I think that he's going to see somewhat of a different House.
A lot ahead in the next 140 days, and a lot ahead on this program as well, including this.
When we come back this morning, the House Democratic leader, Jean Wu, confident that the new speaker will ask Democrats to chair some committees. And Congressman Roger Williams from D.C. on what he hopes the first 60 days of the Trump administration will look like. Inside Texas Politics, back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. The new Republican House Speaker in Austin has Democrats to thank for his victory. They swooped in to back Dustin Burrows when most Republicans voted for David Cook. The question now, what will Democrats get for that support? I sat down with the new leader of the House Democrats, State Rep Jean Wu from Houston, in his office, though, at the Capitol.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the time here. Do you expect Democrats are going to chair any committees this legislature?
I think Democrats will.
You think so? Yes. Did the Speaker offer this to you guys?
No. I think what we had talked about is that we should not close ourselves to the idea that Democrats are just a part of the process. And if we need a Democrat as a chair for a committee, then we should do it, right? Burrows, in our discussions, never said no to Democratic chairmanship.
Why did you guys decide to back Burrows over David Cook?
I think for the first time, well, in my political life, we have a very black and white choice. You have Cook, who's a very nice man, but he signed a pledge. He signed a public pledge that he would not pass a single Democratic bill until every single Republican priority was passed, which means essentially in our language, you will never pass a bill.
One person said that this floor fight for Speaker made the House weaker politically. Do you think it did?
No, I think complete opposite. I think what Texans should see is you finally now have a body of people who is standing up to money, who is standing up to the billionaires, who is standing up to the bullying, who is standing up to the outside, out-of-state influences that trying to tell us what we need instead of us telling what we need. We're here 5 times a decade. How about one of those 5 times we actually do the things that Texans need us to do and fix the things that Texans need us to fix? The other 4 times, sure, pass whatever nonsense bill you want, right? But one time out of a decade, let's fix things.
Gene, how did Democrats exert any influence right now? You have less members than you did last session. You're a new leader, though. What should we be watching for?
Democrats have been out of power in the state for almost 30 years. Republicans have had an iron grip on this state for 30 years. Yet we still face the exact same problems that we have faced for 30 years. What Democrats will do is what Democrats have always done. That we will get up there and be the conscience of the state, saying, how does banning books improve my wages? How does banning drag shows increase my income? How does doing all these things lower the cost of food, lower the cost of housing, help me have reliable power? And one of the big issues that we all have discussed recently, water. This is going to be the next massive crisis, and we have to address it before it becomes the next massive crisis. And we will never touch those things as long as we're focused on the nonsense.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Absolutely.
All right, now to Washington, D.C., where Republicans are getting ready to go to work. President-elect Donald Trump sworn in tomorrow about noon Texas time. What might the next 60 days look like, though? Republican Congressman Roger Williams' district stretches from Fort Worth and Arlington, and he chairs the House Small Business Committee in D.C. Mr. Chairman, welcome to the program here. Let's start with President Trump's inauguration coming up. He said a lot of things during the campaign, but what would you like to see him focus on during the first 60 days?
Well, I want to say thankfully focus on less government. I mean, we need to make tax cuts permanent. In my small business committee, we're going to be working with regulations, taxes, We got to defend. We got to get our borders secure. We've got to decide what we're going to do on Ukraine. There's a lot to happen. We've got to have an energy policy, which I think he'll open up pretty quickly with the Keystone Pipeline. So I think America will see a lot of things happen very, very quickly that will be positive and begin to get our country going again and to be the dominant player in the world in a lot of things.
Mr. Chairman, let's talk about your bill to make Remain in Mexico permanent. It would require, if passed, immigrants to stay in Mexico for processing before actually entering the United States. Republicans have a razor-thin majority right now in the House of Representatives. Are there enough votes to get this passed?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's something that's common sense. What it basically says, Jason, is that if you're going to cross illegally, we'll give you a court date for due process while you're in Mexico, not while you're over here in the States. What's been happening in the Biden administration has totally ignored it, and they've been giving court dates to people after they're already in the United States illegally and expecting them to come back. And I've seen numbers as low as 5% of those who get a court date even begin to show up, and many times they're tied up now almost 8 to 9 years. So that's one reason we got 20 million people here illegally. We don't know who they are and what their MO is, but this bill will keep them in Mexico, let them have due process, but get a court date while they're in Mexico rather than while they're in the United States.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask you about your role as the chair of the Small Business Committee. How do you balance the need for border security with also the role that immigrants play in the U.S. economy, in the Texas economy, especially in fields like agriculture and construction?
Well, that's a great question, and through the years they've been great workers, but we just want people to do it legally. When you come over illegally, you're making a bad decision. A lot of these people are deciding, well, I'm going to go break the law in America. I'm going to go hurt people. I'm going to kill animals. I'm going to break into houses. That's not the way to get into America and get a job. We do need guest workers and that sort of thing, but they need to do it legally. They need to come through the ports of entry, not between the ports of entry, and do it the right way, because we're going to have an economy that's going to go through the roof, and we're going to need workers. We need seasonal workers, and there's a way to get that done. It's called legal behavior. Abide by the law. We welcome you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jason.
A lot to discuss on the roundtable when we come back here. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud, Ian, and Bernadine all back with us. And let's center right now, Bud, on Speaker Burrows' victory at the hands of Democrats. What does that mean for him over the next 5 months?
Well, it means he has a tremendous task ahead of him. He has to be conservative enough to get the people reelected who voted for him, the 30 or so Republicans. He has to run a conservative House so those people don't get defeated by all these people who are furious with him. And yet he has to do something so that the Democrats believe they have a say-so.
Ian, what do you think happens to the Republicans, those 30 or so Republicans who voted for Burrows? Do they face any political punishment next primary?
Well, possibly, but the primary is a long time away. And let's look at and a lot of those Republicans who did support Burrows are experienced Republicans who have been committee chairs and have been, very involved in the legislature. So, they're experienced politicians and lawmakers. So they have that working for them too. And, Speaker Burrows has an opportunity here too when committee chair assignments start to come out to really kind of change the narrative a bit of this kind of divisiveness within the party, which we'll see. It's still going to be divisive, but there's an opportunity there.
And Bernadine, we just heard Gene Wu just a moment ago tell us that he thinks there will be some Democratic committee chairs that Speaker Burrows never took that off the table with them. What are you expecting?
Well, you know what? In order for the Speaker to appoint Democrats to chairmanships, he's got to have a lot of courage, because he's not going to be able to have a very good session if the entire session he's fighting the narrative that he appointed Democrats to chairmanships, as well as he has to deal with those Republicans who don't want chairmanships. So he has to have a lot of courage to do that, and a lot of trust in his ability to act as chair, as Speaker.
But if he doesn't appoint any Democrats as chairs, he risks losing the Democrats who supported him, and there's already Republicans who are upset with him.
He has to pick his spots. He could put somebody in charge of county affairs or somebody who has an incredible level of talent, credibility in a field. But Governor Patrick's list is out. He appointed 2 Democrats as vice chairs Royce West and Nathan Johnson will be vice chairs of committees.
I'm going to switch off to the big news tomorrow. President Trump inaugurated, and a lot of folks are wondering what really happens. What campaign promise does he fulfill in his first 60 days? What's the talk down there in Austin?
Well, certainly, in Texas and beyond, it'll be all eyes will be kind of on what happens with mass deportations. How will that process work? How will local authorities be involved? That's a lot that people are going to be watching about. Of course, there are other promises that that President Trump has made in terms of what he's going to start off with, too, pardoning January 6 defendants, addressing the war in Ukraine. Addressing the issue of birthright citizenship, obviously the issue of tariffs too. I mean, these are all things that President Trump has talked about doing on day one. So it's a lot, but we're going to be watching that because there's a lot that's going to be taking place.
Yeah, that's a long list there, Bernadine.
I know it, but I think the first thing and the one that's going to get the most coverage will be mass deportation. Number one, you do have questions as to how it's going to be accomplished, but that's a winning issue for Republicans. And I think that he's going to start it and he's going to probably carry it out for years because that might be how long it's going to take to deport, but that's going to be where he initially starts with immigration and that mass deportation, as Ian mentioned.
But Bud, that would get caught up in the courts, I'm thinking, almost immediately.
In most cases it would. He'd have to deport 7,500 people a day over his 4-year term. So the math doesn't add up. But look at this touchy time too. People forget this, but after Hurricane Katrina, President Bush actually suspended immigration enforcement for several months so that New Orleans could be rebuilt.
Right.
Now we have Carolina needs rebuilding, California needs rebuilding. Throwing workers out of the country right now won't go over.
All right, a lot ahead. Guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics, and we hope to see you then. Take care.